All right, so we left off with learning about how Daisy would use her powers towards her dreams because Piper's working on having all these kids want to use their powers again. I told Daisy that them tiny rabbits got out. No problem. They might be small, but I bet they can run, I told her. So, you know what Daisy and Myrtle would do if they got out? They figure they'll work together and make homes for things that don't have homes anymore. They don't have it all worked out yet exactly, but Myrtle's going to do the legwork and Daisy'll handle the heavy lifting. And they've got a mind to get a piece of land and just collect up plants and animals and people that's looking for a place where folks will let them be. Comrade snorted. Without a doubt, that was the most ridiculous idea he'd ever heard. Until, of course, the following evening when Piper related how Nalin and Ahmed's great plans were so detailed that they had already selected a name for their company, Mustafa Weather Solutions, and had a business plan that included a bread and butter base of helping farmers get rain, as well as dabbling in government contracts to reverse global warming. All of that work would support their main passion, hurricane wrangling, tsunami interception, and possibly even some covert operations and counter weather terrorism. That last part was, of course, very hush hush. Hearing this, Conrad just about threw his hands up in disgust at the craziness of it all. 2 nights later, Piper excitedly reported that Kimber's dream was to use static electricity to create an act for the Cirque du Soleil, in which she would be called Mistress of Electricity. Kimber's act was going to be so electric, so amazing that her audience would give her standing ovations each and every night. No comment from Conrad. There was one stumbling point that Piper endlessly discussed with Conrad, but had no success overcoming. No matter what Piper did, Jasper could not remember his ability and had no dream other than getting home and seeing his grandmother, who promised him a puppy whom we planned to call Rex. It's like they went right into his head and took a piece out, Piper complained to Conrad. Jasper just plain doesn't know. I reckon I asked him every which way to Sunday, and still he doesn't know. It's a right shame, too. As soon as Piper sensed that the uprising of enthusiasm and excitement for their dreams was firmly established among the class, with the exception of Jasper, she began posing subtle questions designed to cause suspicion and fan the flames of discontent. I sure miss my ma and pa. Don't you miss yours? Dr. Hellion keeps telling me that she'll pass on any letters they send, but she doesn't. Are you getting letters from your folks? No? Huh? Why'd you think we don't get to talk to them? The more Piper prodded and poked, the more she got the others to think hard about things they hadn't yet occurred to them. But Dr. Hellion says that if I go around using my telekinesis all the time, I'll get really bad headaches, and she doesn't want to see me in pain, Lily said with wide eyes. But did you ever get a headache before? Lily thought hard for a moment before saying slowly, Well, no, I guess I didn't. I can't ever remember having a headache. Piper nodded meaningfully. Well, then, it's a mighty strange thing for Dr. Hellion to tell you, don't you think? I said it to her just like that, Piper reported passionately to Conrad. I said, That is a mighty strange thing for Dr. Hellion to tell you. And I could see Lily got to thinking the same thing. And when I pointed out to Kimber that we kept learning the same lessons over and over again and asked her why she thought they weren't teaching us anything new, it was like you could have knocked her over with a feather. She just plumb didn't realize they were teaching the same things day in and day out. Did you notice how she was all fidgety and angry all afternoon and asking all those questions? It's because she knows something's not right. Piper paused, considering her next words carefully. Comrade, there's something else. I've been getting this strange feeling. Piper reached for phrases that could communicate the peculiar feeling of being watched and followed that had been suddenly building inside of her over the last few weeks. It was as though, just out of her line of sight, there was a shadow lurking, ready at any moment to pounce upon her. Try as she might, Piper had never actually seen or heard anything. If she hadn't known better, she would have sworn that it was exactly like that fateful morning in her bedroom at the farm, wherein she'd heard that man's voice, the one Dr. Hellion had warned her about. What I'm getting at, Conrad, Piper began again, is that I'm being followed. Finished! Comrade, who, as per usual, hadn't been paying attention to what Piper had been saying, put down his pen and stepped away from the desk. You finished? You got the plan? Piper shot upward several feet into the air. It's a plan. I can't guarantee it'll work, Comrade warned. It'll work. We'll make it work. Comrade didn't share Piper's wild enthusiasm, nor belief in many of his classmates' random and ineffective talents. Nonetheless, 24 hours later, he contrived to disable the security surveillance in the girls' bathroom and arrange a midnight meeting that would be attended by all of the residents of Level 13. Comrade insisted that Piper be the one to break the truth to the others, since the whole plan was her idea in the first place. He warned her not to be disappointed if the kids were already too brainwashed to accept the reality of their situation. He also prepared her for the fact that even if they did believe her, they'd probably be too scared to even consider the idea of an escape, or worst case scenario, lose their marbles completely. In the early hours, Piper finished explaining everything to a wide-eyed audience who sat slack-jawed and immobile. So we got to get out of here, all of us. Comrades thought up a right good plan, and all we got to do is follow it. And do what once we get out? Kimber wanted to know. Where are we supposed to go? My parents don't want me anymore. What am I going to do? But we can't stay here. They're putting poisons in us. Who wants that? Piper reasoned. She tried her best to sound confident, despite Comrade's pessimism. With all of us working together, we'll be out in no time. If you stay, the only way out is being normal. But is it such a bad thing to be normal and like everyone else? Myrtle had spent her life running away from conflict and was ready to accept any option that would exempt her from having to face a fight. You want to be normal, Myrtle? And never again run like the wind? Is that what you want? Piper challenged, unable to understand how Myrtle would even consider staying at Insane. But are you sure about all this, Piper? Maybe you're mistaken about Dr. Hellion or got confused, Lily hoped. It's even worse than the way Piper presented it. Much worse. Comrade weighed in, and the children knew better than to question his intelligence. I don't know if this is such a good idea, Kimber shook her head. What if we're caught? Can't be much worse than what they're already doing to us now, right, Conrad? Piper argued. Although the others didn't notice, Conrad was strangely quiet at this point. Piper continued regardless. Come on, y'all. It's not a crime to be scared, but we can't stay here if it's bad for us. We got something to fight for. I heard what y'all told me. How you have things you gotta do in this world. Don't tell me you don't, because I know you do. Sure, they gave us nice beds and fed us fancy food, but that's nothing. Not really. Not compared to going in tombs or floating in space or wrestling a tsunami or seeing our families. It's not right what they're doing to us. It just isn't right, and that's the truth. I say we don't stand for it anymore. Silence. Each child thought about this. It was a big decision. While Conrad couldn't believe how well things were going, after all, the kids were stunned, but not out of control, and none of them had gone ballistic. Piper was exceedingly disappointed. Now that they knew the truth, wasn't it simply a matter of common sense that they would take action? Piper couldn't fathom how, knowing that they were being slowly poisoned, not to mention brainwashed, and that the Institute was not a school but a prison, that they wouldn't immediately want to escape. And yet they didn't. Piper hadn't realized what a difficult task it was trying to set a person free. She dug deep and tried again. My ma told me that there isn't anything in this life worth having that comes easy. She told me that every road I walk down's got to have a price. But what she didn't tell me, and what I learned since I've been here, is that if you don't choose the road you're going to walk, sooner or later someone else will do that choosing for you. Now, maybe Myrtle's right, and there's nothing wrong with being normal like everyone else. But the truth is that we aren't like everyone else. We're like the way the good Lord made us, and wouldn't that be a terrible thing to turn our backs on? I can't promise you that everything on this road is going to be okay, because sure enough, every road I've ever been on has got a bend or two, and a few hills and valleys besides. I do know this, though. I know that I was meant to fly, and I'm not going to walk out of here. I'm going to fly out of here. And I know what road I belong on because I feel it here, Piper pointed to her heart. So, you got to choose your road now, and you'll know which one it is because you'll feel it here too. Piper held her breath while fears were considered and weighed against dreams. For some, it was dead even. For others, the fear spoke more loudly. A small voice finally spoke up. I think Piper's right. I say we escape. Violet shrank a good 5 inches from the effort. Slowly, reticent heads began to nod. If we're caught, I'll electrocute you till you're black and crispy. Kimber wagged her finger at Piper. Before anyone could change their minds, Conrad spread a schematic of the facility on the floor in front of them. All right, listen up. Here's the plan. It was a brilliant plan, which surprised no one. It was complicated, though, depending heavily on precise timing and each kid using their talent. As most of the children had been unknowingly consuming the drugs for such a long time, some of them didn't even know if they still had their ability. Conrad set a rigorous 7-day schedule for preparation. He allowed a 48-hour period to flush the drugs out of their bodies and budgeted 72 hours of practice and additional mental preparation. The escape was far from easy, and he needed them at their best. From that moment on, mealtimes brought a new challenge. Kids had to look as though they were eating so as to not arouse suspicion, while consuming only the list of foods that Conrad knew were incompatible with drugs. The list was extremely small: carrots, most fruits, potatoes, rice, and salad without dressing. As a result of their restricted diet, the kids dragged themselves about, starving and quietly complaining to one another. I'm so hungry I could just die, Lily whined to Smitty. I'm so hungry I ate some of the leaves off Bella's plant, Smitty confessed. With a bit of salt. They don't taste half bad either. You think you could score some for me? In addition to this, Conrad had worked out a practice schedule, so it would be possible for all of the kids to use and strengthen their talents. An absolute necessity if his plan was going to have any chance of working. Violet shrank at night in her room for a whole hour between 9 and 10 o'clock, and then again in the morning for another half hour. Daisy snuck into the gym and alternated between lifting the entire climbing apparatus and the trampoline. Smitty and Lily performed random acts of X-ray sightseeing or telekinesis throughout the day. Though many wished Lily wouldn't, she was unable to resist playing pranks. It was harder for Piper to fly since most of the ceilings were too low, and Conrad insisted that the atrium was too risky. Piper did what she could and saw to it that her feet were off the ground and in the air as much as possible. As for the Mustafa twins, a random hurricane above the facility or rain clouds in the shower was simply going to attract too much attention. They were given strict instructions to restrict their preparation to mental planning. The escape was set for Friday at midnight, and as the days passed, tension built, and the kids got increasingly jumpy and snappy. By the Friday morning of the escape, the residents of the 13th level were roused from a restless and sleepless night and started what they hoped was their last day in the facility with frayed nerves and a wild look in their eyes. It's the waiting that gets to you, Smitty paced nervously in the library that afternoon. Sit down, Smitty was getting on Kimber's last nerve. You're attracting attention. Conrad said we've got to act normal. You're one to talk. Like they didn't notice that you shorted the gymnasium electrical grid and blew out 120 light bulbs this morning? Yeah, that was subtle, Sparky. Smitty and Kimber weren't the only ones the pressure was affecting. At breakfast, Daisy had somehow managed to break the dining table in half, even though it was made of steel and unbreakable quartz glass. A strange mist kept swirling around Nolan and Ahmed, and Violet had spent the entire day at half her size, and her hands were shaking so badly that she couldn't turn the page of a book she was pretending to read. Tomorrow morning, we'll all get to watch the sunrise, Piper soothed them. You'll see. It's going to be as easy as pie. Listening to her words and the conviction in her voice calmed them. Smitty nodded and sat down. Myrtle's rhythmic rocking slowed, and Violet grew 2 inches. Piper's right, Conrad weighed in, convincingly. Relax. There isn't a thing we have to worry about. Everything's planned and it'll go just as it's supposed to. Nothing will go wrong now. Harrington front and center. Nurse Toll's booming voice startled the group from their discussion. He appeared out of nowhere, glowered at the door of the library. Move it. Dr. Hellion wants to see you. Now. As nonchalantly as possible, Conrad strolled from the room, leaving behind 9 kids who accelerated from tentative relaxation to full panic in less than 60 seconds flat. It took Piper the better part of an hour to calm them so that Kimber stopped giving off spontaneous electrical sparks and Violet can return to something close to her normal size. Conrad returned just as the evening meal bell rang, much to everyone's relief. He was relaxed and smiling and instantly put everyone at ease. We're in the clear. Dr. Hellion knows nothing and suspects even less. It's a go. And that's where chapter 15 begins.